Hello and welcome everybody to episode 9 of Songsmith. Today we're going to be talking about my issues with a certain aspect of Christian music. I believe you're probably going to agree with me in a lot of the things I have to say today, as well as the takeaways we'll be able to get from this conversation. Don't worry, it's not going to be all critical. It's got a lot of good insight that we're going to be going over and hopefully help you as a songwriter. So as usual, without further ado, let's jump right in. Hello everyone, and welcome to Songsmith. I'm your host, Keaton Williamson, and my goal is to help equip you to be the best musician you can be. The purpose of this show is to give you the knowledge it takes to be a successful songwriter, producer, and indie artist, while also honoring God in whatever music you create. We all want to be successful in this crowded space, so join me as we explore what it takes to be a songsmith. As usual, a couple things I want to mention before we start. I have a bit of a cold thing. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. It's not too bad, but it's making my voice a little bit raspy. So especially as we get farther into the episode, if I sound a little bit worse, that's why. I also forgot to bring water out, so that's fun. Nothing to refresh my voice. On top of that, I want to try and make these episodes a little bit more fun, a little bit loose, because recently I feel like they've been a little stiff, even though I've had expression in them and been fun, been jumpy. It still feels kind of stiff when I listen back to myself, whether it's through editing or whatever it may be. So I'm going to try and be a little more off the cuff, if that's the right phrase, as well as, just be a little bit more relaxed and a little more fun. If nothing else, it'll make it a bit more enjoyable for you guys to listen to, and it'll make it a little bit more, chill or fun, whatever, for me to be recording that way. So I have a problem. A problem with Christian music. Not all Christian music, one specific aspect of Christian music, and that is the Christian radio CCM industry. Yeah, there's some stuff we need to talk about with them. Everything sounds the same. It's just not different, and I can't stand turning on the radio and almost every song sounding the same way. And don't worry, I'm going to put more behind that statement. It's not just me ranting. So don't go starting to boo me and be like, no. Trust me, I have some good stuff to say, and it's not going to be all critical. I have some very key takeaways that we can take from, looking at this industry and looking at the problems it does have and how we can hopefully impact it for the better, but also just some takeaways for our own personal creations. So take a second to think about some of the Christian songs that are playing on radio, whatever it may be, whatever it's now or it's been like a year or two ago. Recently, most of the music has a very similar tempo, very similar sound. It's a lot of yay, God is good, woo, woo, oh yeah. It just feels shallow. I think you know what I mean. A lot of it is just kind of disconnected from human emotion and feeling. It's just yeah, God is good, yeah. Not to say that there's not outliers, there definitely are. There's songs that don't fit that mold, but a lot of them sound similar, lyrically as well as musically. I think there's a lot of contributing factors to the reason the industry is in this way, and I have some of those reasons to talk about in this episode. My idea is to break the episode up into 3 different parts. Still all one long episode, but I have different points I'm going to talk about. And then at the very end, break down how we can look at those things and hopefully learn from them and make our music better. The 3 points I have to talk about are these. They need to make money, so that definitely plays a contributing factor into how things are done. The other thing is obviously the blandness of it, kind of why that is, and, some of the reasons that has come about. And the third is that the messaging and, the topics of these songs are just kind of, they're not deep. They're just shallow, happy messages most of the time. At least that's what I feel like. So the first point, like I said, is they need to make money. Obviously, these guys, Matthew West, Newsboys, Toby Mac, Francesca Battistelli, Amy Grant, Katie Nicole, and countless others, all are in this as an industry. And obviously, it's an industry because it makes money, and it needs to make money to continue to work. These people, most of them, it's their main income. They don't do anything else. They do music, they tour, they make it, they release it. That's how they get their income. So if you're creating music, then you obviously have to create something that people will listen to and that you can make money off of. If you don't, well, you don't have money to live, which is ever so slightly important, I believe. On top of that, you also have the people who aren't making the music, but are running the artists and, managing them, their managers, their labels, and all the other people involved from, tech crews setting up the tours and or setting up the equipment in the tours and everything that goes into being a mainstream artist or a Christian mainstream artist. All these people need to make money for a living. And in an industry that is so reliant on public perception, and not that's not the right word. In an industry where you have to have people like what you make, you have to find the things that they enjoy the most and really hone in on those. If you're stuck in a period of music that nobody really liked, then they're going to move on without you and you're not going to be able to make money. That's one of the reasons that I feel a lot of artists stick with one thing and one thing only. Over time, Christian artists have found what works and what doesn't work as well. And when you don't have as much popularity as say some country bands or artists like Morgan Wallen, Old Dominion, Thomas Rhett, or pop artists like Bruno Mars or Taylor Swift, you have less room for error. You can't have as many mess ups or as many songs or albums even that flop because you have less room for error and less room to lose money. So if you find a type of Christian music or a message in Christian music that seems to do pretty well, they tend to latch onto that with like a death grip. And I think that's part of the reason that they're not moving forward with new sounds as quickly as other industries. Things like pop and country are pushing the bounds a lot of the times with the sounds they're using and the way songs go, sound, whatever. But Christian music is a little bit more like behind. They're like, okay, we'll see how this goes for these mainstream artists. And then after maybe a year or so, we'll start integrating that into our music slowly to see if our audience likes that. Since Christian music isn't pushing the bounds as much, we're getting the tail end of these industries' new sounds. What was extremely new and exciting for, say, someone like Thomas Rhett is old news by the time it gets into the Christian music industry a year and a half to 2 years later. Furthermore, if they do start to do these things that are a little more experimental, the sound is a little bit different, then it typically doesn't get pushed as much on radio, which is really the main exposure point for an artist. Sure, you have your local radio stations, but if you can get a song onto something like K-Love, you'll be able to find a great wide audience. But if they don't think the song is worth pushing, then a lot of people aren't going to hear it. The sad truth is, there are a lot of artists out there creating music that is, not the norm. It's not exactly the same as everybody else. It's more unique. But it ends up on their albums or EPs, and it's not one of the songs that the label pushes to the radio stations because they know it's less likely to get played. So then there's the people who do go sit down and listen to the whole album, and they're like, how did I not hear this song? Why is this not on radio? I wanted to hear this. And they love it. It's great. But then you have all the other people who just either listen to the single songs that are played on radio or don't even use a streaming service because they're older or they just don't really listen to music through a streaming service and therefore just listen to the radio station and only get fed what they play. Therefore, those songs are considered not great and get that type of music gets pushed to the back burner, whether it's a artistic style of how the music sounds or lyrically how it goes. All those things, they get boxed into, they have to be a certain sound that radio will push. And the sad truth is, there's a growing divide between radio and audience in terms that the radio stations are playing what they think is safe, what they think will keep listeners coming back. And while there are tons of listeners coming back, a lot more people recently are waking up and saying, hey, this Christian music thing, it's getting kind of boring. It just sounds the same. And they're losing more and more people to other types of music or streaming services because they want to hear something different. The amount of Instagram reels I've seen where it's like, such and such says Christian music isn't interesting, and then the person shows a preview of a song they put out, which a lot of them are indie artists and stuff, whether they're the ones I've listened to or not. I see this kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, a lot of people are saying Christian music is boring, but there are a lot of great individuals making music, or even high-end artists like, your Toby Max and everything, making songs that are more unique. They're just not getting pushed. So it causes things to just, to sound all the same. But not to get too far off the topic of the reason, point one, that they need to make money. Obviously, that all plays into it. If what they make is more unique and the stations don't feel like it's going to do well, then they just don't put it on radio, and therefore they can't make money off that song as easily because not as many people are hearing it. My second point, which kind of is just like a continuation or flows from point one to point two, is the blandness of the music. Obviously, like I said, these songs they aren't played as much because, as I said, They need to do stuff that stations think will be successful. Whether the song is or is not going to be successful is only determined once they play it. But they're trying to do the best and safest option. Because again and again, I'll say, it's an industry, it's businesses, it's people trying to make money. There's still great people in the industry, but there is money involved. Therefore, they have to do what they think is best as a business sense, not just what is creatively the most unique or interesting. So, say you want a song on radio and you're not a mainstream artist, or you're just a smaller signed artist and you're trying to break into that industry. Your options are two things. One, you push so hard for your unique, interesting song to get played on radio with a manager and I forget what the specific term is, but like the people who go and help pitch the song. And you just like really, really try and get that thing to go and hope that radio stations will accept it and it will start to pick on. But the sad truth is that the other option really is to write songs that fit that mold of Christian radio. That's not to say there's not exceptions. Obviously, there are. One of the exceptions I've heard from a smaller artist on Dream Label Group, actually the same label that Matthew Parker is signed to, is by a song by All Creatures called Wonder Working, and it has a beat drop in it. That's crazy for Christian music. Normally, it's like the guitars, it's the pianos, the keyboards, some synths every once in a while. Well, a little more than every once in a while, but still more of your like classic Christian music instruments. But a beat drop, that's insane. You never hear that on Christian radio, but that song made it on. And it fit more of the lyric side of the mainstream music industry in some of the sound, but it was still a little more electronic than most Christian music was. And it was like, yes, this is really cool. Are we going to hear more of this? And we didn't. Not really. I remember hearing a few weeks back, which this was actually a bit of an older song, a Lauren Daigle song that had been remixed and was more electronic, but that was just like a request by someone. So it was lucky to be on air again. Like it played during its time, but it wasn't a long lasting song, I think. An example I want to bring up of a smaller artist or smaller artists getting their music on a radio station is the young Canadian producer Nitro X. He's a Christian EDM hip hop type producer, as well as the Nashville artist who's independent as well, Jay Steph. Now he's primarily goes by Jordan Blaine, but regardless, the song he did was under his Jay Steph artist name. They wrote a song and put out a song called More Than Life. It's a fun not hip hop. It's a fun, bouncy song about how I need God more than life. Oh, God, I need you more than life. You're all I ever needed to survive. That's part of the chorus. And it's great. And it's got a beat drop at the end. And their radio station put it on air. Well, not Jordan's radio station, but Owen Bloomfield, Nitro X, his radio station put it on air. And that was really cool. Obviously, that kind of stuff doesn't happen all the time. Later, they did another song that was very similar, a little bit more electronic, a little more EDM than the other one, called Won't Let Go. And the radio station was like, no, this is too electronic for us. And if you go and listen to it, yes, it's electronic, but it's not like crazy insane. And I'm like, these are the problems. They're rejecting songs that are perfectly good because they don't fit the genre that you have established as like the main Christian genre. I feel like a lot of what gets played is more of a like pop-ish sound, and then a little bit of country sprinkled in here and there, specifically with people like Ann Wilson, a little bit from Kane, Zach Williams. You have a few of those country Christian artists where they have that country twang, but even their music isn't super country at times. A lot of times it follows still more of that traditional Christian music sound. Again, as I said earlier, music in the Christian realm starts to evolve and change with the times. But typically, again, it's riding the back end of the wave of music that was popular several months, a year and a half ago. And so, even though it's exciting to hear it on Christian radio, we've already heard it on some of the popular songs by people like Taylor Swift or some of the popular country artists. I don't know why I keep bringing Taylor Swift up. She's just like one name that's easy to remember. But yeah, they're just kind of riding the wave, the back of the wave of these new popular sounds. So it's exciting for Christian music, but old for all of us because we've already heard it before. Before I move into my next point, I want to bring up something. So if you don't already know, I have a YouTube channel for Songsmith. As of right now, it's just got the episodes with like visualizers uploaded, and it's the same look that you can see on the Spotify app if you look at the video side of the show. However, I have plans for some YouTube original and exclusive content coming up in the future. If you want to stay tuned to that, as well as help support me, would you mind going over there and hitting the subscribe button as well as the notification bell? And if you are on YouTube already and am not subscribed, your support by subscribing is a huge help to push me through the algorithm so more people can hear about Songsmith and get plugged into our community. You can stay up to date with the show with notifications when you're subscribed, as well as see community posts I put out every once in a while with sometimes announcements that I don't put on Instagram. So if you're an Instagram follower and you want some more content that you might not see on Instagram, head over to YouTube because then you can follow me and look for those things. I have a lot of exciting content planned for the channel. I just haven't had time to work on all of it yet, but you will be the first to know if you go over there and hit that subscribe button. And as all the other YouTubers say, make sure to like this video, comment, subscribe, do all the things, because it really does help. Now on to point 3. Obviously, I want Christian music to sound more unique, more original, not bland and everything. But one of my biggest gripes with the main Christian music industry is the fact that all of the messaging seems to be the same. As I keep kind of bringing up in, small amounts, all of these songs seem to have this happy, God is good all the time, life is perfect kind of sound. That seems to be all they're singing about, from Praise by Elevation Worship, where it's like, I've got a reason to praise the Lord, oh my soul, to Brighter Days by Blessing Offer. I know there's gonna be some brighter days. These songs in of themselves are not bad, but when the same messaging is from song to song to song, where it just feels like life is perfect, or there's a very shallow, abstract problem, but then God, quote unquote, swoops in and fixes everything and makes it all perfect, it just doesn't feel real. Now, I know we aren't necessarily preachers behind a pulpit, but with Christian music, we have a lot of people listening to us, and it's impacting a lot of different people. Imagine if you were at a church and every single message you were preached to, from that church, you go to another church, all these churches preach the same message. God is good all the time, and all your problems are solved with him. Now, that might sound good. It might sound really like, yay, he's the one who fixes all my problems. And God can and does help fix your problems. But that's not the message of the gospel. The gospel message is that God comes to us while we are still sinners and redeems us and starts making us new. And the road that we have to walk is a narrow road, as Jesus says, and it's not easy following him, but it is worth the time and effort it takes to follow Jesus. I'm not trying to start a revolution where it's like, oh, all Christian music has to be this dark, it's hard to follow God. I don't want the polar opposite. What I want is a industry and radio that accurately represents what the message of the gospel is and what Christianity truly is. Sometimes music might be one of our first doorways into someone, that it reaches them in a way that nothing else can. If we can create music that gives an accurate representation of the gospel, that can be so much more than just this, cheap, God is good all the time. Because even though he's good all the time, it doesn't mean that we always feel that. Because Christianity isn't about feeling, it's about belief and trusting and faith. If you can create music that expresses how there are difficulties in life and not tone them down, not make them abstract, be kind of specific sometimes, and really, really push those things, and then have God as the hope in that, as some of your music, that can be so much more touching and so much more connectable than music that's just always upbeat and happy. Obviously, if life sucks, then you're not going to want to always just hear happy music. It's just going to be like, I don't want to listen to happy music because it's just, life isn't good. You don't want to just hear that. You want to hear something that relates to you. Again, I can't stress enough, it's not all meant to be this way. It's meant to be a good mix of the two musics. The two different types of music are supposed to meet each other and have this great, full message, not just extremes of God is good all the time or the extremes of life is hard. If you can meet that in the middle and make it relatable, it makes music something so much better and so much more interesting and engaging than what we have right now. So what are the takeaways from all of this? First off, people don't need stimulation. They need honesty. They don't want a message that's all unbelievable and too good to be true, where life is perfect by following God. They need something that accurately represents what it's like to be a Christian, the good, the bad, and the ugly. By understanding that, we can create songs in both types, some that are really good and happy and upbeat, and others that are down to earth and honest about what is actually life. What's life as a Christian? It's not always easy. It is hard. We still get depressed. We still have to face money issues. We still have to live life. We still have to deal with sickness. But God is there through it all. I don't want this to get too preachy, but I just want to make sure that's clear. Because when we can understand that, that will make a radical, radical change in the Christian music industry. I'm seeing so many young entrepreneuring artists or independent artists that are doing these things, and it's like, yes. And I'm like, so excited about it. And, I'm just like, radio, please play these songs. It would be so amazing to hear. Sorry for that. I just wanted to do that so bad. Yeah, that was really fun. Another takeaway that you can look about is that songs that have real issues and relatable things, like I talked about in episode 3, it makes it the most relatable. When you have things that other people are going through and you talk about those things in your songs, then people are like, oh yeah, I've been there. That makes sense. And then you talk about, oh, well, there's a way out of this. I might be just re-saying what I said in episode 3, but it is true. When you have those struggles and those moments that people can relate to, people are like willing to listen to you when you have something, an alternative, a solution in your song. And then it connects on more than just a this song sounds good level, but it's like, oh, I resonate with this song. Finally, a lot of us are probably not making money off our music. However, maybe we are, or maybe we're just trying to release consistently. I'm not even to that point yet, but maybe you are. Make sure as you're creating music, you're not just doing it to release more and to make stuff that people will love every time. Make things that you want to make and make music for the sake of making music, not for the money, not for the likes, not for the shares. Make it to make it. Sometimes the most creativity happens when you're willing to unplug and just be like, I just want to make music. Doesn't matter what happens with it, it's in God's hands. Obviously, try and listen to what He might have for you to say through that music, but don't get caught up in other people's opinions. Obviously, if it becomes something full-time for you, that can be hard, but try and remember the reason you started doing music. That will be a great guiding light as things get more complicated as you move on. Before the Songsmith Challenge, I just want to say one more thing about the show. If you are enjoying this show, I would love to hear about it. I put a ton of work into it, and I would really like to know what you guys think about it. If you have things you want to tell me about the show or talk about, you can email me with the information below in the description or show notes, as well as message me on Instagram. And if you really think it's good, and I mean like, if you really like it, then consider on whatever platform it is you have, rating the show with the stars on there, liking it if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can give me an actual review typing out your thoughts on the show. All those things, first off, are a huge encouragement to me to know that you guys do like what I'm making. But on top of that, it also helps push me through the algorithm, especially in things like YouTube and Apple Podcasts, where I can get on playlists and get in front of more people's eyes to, again, grow our songwriting community so we can strengthen each other and bounce ideas off of each other to help grow in this journey that we're on. Thank you so much for those of you who have already reached out and told me what you think of the show and have rated it. It is really extremely helpful. Now for the Songsmith Challenge of today's episode. I want to take a topic that is very often talked about in Christian music, mainstream Christian music, and challenge you to do something different with it. I want you to take the idea that God is good, whether you take that specific phrase or just the idea that God is good, and make it unique and make it your own. Make the structure of the song different. Make the instruments you use very unique. Make it EDM. Make it country. Make it lo-fi. I don't know. Make it something different than what everybody else is doing. Be unique and original. Take this idea that is often so commonly used and make it sound different and put your own spin on it. Because my idea for it is not only that you use this as the idea, but you use this as the hope or the light at the end of the tunnel, as maybe an outro or a bridge. A lot of the song is that there's maybe a struggle. Maybe you have something you're talking about that you're dealing with, and then you hit the bridge and there's like this wow moment at the end. Maybe a good example would be Sam Bowman's song Rose Colored Glasses, featuring Ben Lawrence. In the song, in the chorus, he goes, "Tell me there's more. Tell me there's something more than hollow-hearted, happy thoughts and clever quotes to cling to." And then later in, I think, verse 3 is when it is. It's kind of like a stand-in for a bridge. It serves a similar purpose. He goes, "And that's where I am when a gentle voice says, don't become weary and keep on believing there's more. Believing there's something more than hollow-hearted, happy thoughts and clever quotes to cling to." But as you can see, it starts out, and I'll explain a little bit better, that the song starts where it's like, I'm looking at this world through rose-colored glasses, and it's just, it makes everything look good, but in reality, it's not that way. They tell me to be positive, but that's not really going to help. And then it shows God coming into the picture, and he's picks him up. He shows them there is something more with him. Something like that. Doesn't have to be the exact same. I don't want it to be the exact same. I want you to take it and do something unique and original with it. As always, I'd love to hear what you make, so contact me via email, Instagram, or whatever. Now, if you listen to this episode and we're like, wow, all you did was criticize the mainstream industry, that's not what this episode's supposed to be about. I want you to understand that what I was trying to bring across was some of the issues I see with the industry and how we can combat them. I know there's a lot of great artists out there making music that doesn't fit that mold. We just don't hear about it as much. Some examples are on Mercy Me's album Inhale Exhale. There's a song called That Was So Yesterday or So Yesterday. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'll link that in the description to if you want to check it out. But in it, it's a little bit different sounding than what they would normally make, and it's a little bit more unique, a little more stylistically different than what is normally made by them and the main Christian music. But obviously, not every song on an album makes it to radio, and that song didn't make it. So, yeah, they made something different and unique. It just, wasn't what radio wanted. Similarly, you might not even know about this, but there was an EP or album, I forget what it was labeled, by Toby Mac released called The Demos, Toby Mac Demos, Songwriting Demos. And they were, a collection of songs that he'd either finished writing or almost finished writing, started producing, whatever, but never ended up getting released. So he took the time with some producers, with some writers, I don't know exactly how it happened, but finished up these songs and released them. I'll link the whole YouTube playlist and Spotify album in the show notes so you can go and listen to all those songs, but they are much different from what he normally makes. And I really like a lot of them. They feel a little bit more like the independent Christian music, but none of them ever hit radio because they didn't fit that normal mold that, fit his style or what radio wanted. So again, this episode isn't supposed to be a whole criticizing the industry and be like, they are just so bad, they have no great things to say. It's just the problems I see in how what's actually going on, what are some of the reasons for it, and what we can take away from that to hopefully make our music better and maybe make a push that will change this industry for the better. With that, the end of another episode. Yeah, we made it through the 9th episode of Songsmith. Can you believe it? 9 episodes into the show. That is amazing. I can't believe we're this far into the show already. That means we've been releasing a new episode every other week since the beginning of the year. 3 episodes at the beginning of the year and 2 bonus episodes. That's insane. This is also just another reminder, there is a Q&A next episode. I'm running out of time for questions, guys, so if I don't get enough questions, I'm going to have to put it off for not being episode 10. And I really want this to be a really cool, we finally hit 10 episodes, let's talk, you and me. So, if you have questions, there's a couple ways you can do it. If you're on YouTube, comment below this episode. If you're on Spotify, I'm going to put a Q&A open where you can submit questions for the Q&A or, drop questions for another episode. But if you have more minute questions about me, the show, my music, etc., you can do that all there. Another option is to submit a voice message. I'll leave the link to that in the description and the show notes of the episodes across all platforms. If you click on that, it'll send you to a page where you can send a voice message to me asking me your question. If you don't want to do any of those ways, or those ways don't work for you for whatever reason, you can email me using my email that's in the description, but I'll say it here, songsmithshow@gmail.com. To find the specific spelling, if you're not sure, look in the show notes. You can also DM me on Instagram @Songsmithshow. That is also in the show notes of today's episode, as it is in all episodes. Again, I need those questions. I only have 3 right now, so make sure to submit them using those different ways so I can do this episode for the next episode. I need them in roughly a week from now so I can record, edit, and get it ready for launch day. My goal is 10 questions, so if you have more than one, you can submit them. I'll do around 2 to 3 a person as long as they're good questions. Any more and it's not guaranteed they'll be in the episode because I want to try and get a good amount, but we'll see. So submit the questions. If you have more than one, make sure to do that. As usual, let me know in the Q&A, in the comments, whatever, what you want me to cover in the following episodes. If you have questions about songwriting, let me know those, and I'll cover them to the best of my abilities in the following episodes. And as always, like, subscribe, follow, and comment on whatever platform you're on as a way to help support me and show that you guys are enjoying what I'm making. I think I've covered all my bases for the outro of this episode, so I hope you guys enjoyed episode 9 of Songsmith. And as always, keep writing.